Welcome to another episode of the Time Management Revolution podcast. I'm Helene Segura, and I'm a time management fixer. Today, I would love to introduce you to Valerie Gavin. She is an executive coach, speaker, and founder of Orion's Compass, specializing in helping leaders turn overwhelm into clarity, focus, and sustainable results. With over 25 years as a senior executive in global luxury hospitality, she has led high performing teams through disruption, transformation, and growth. Creator of the Leadership Energy Code, Valerie delivers practical, battle tested strategies for managing time, mind, and energy so that high achievers can excel without sacrificing well being, relationships, or purpose. Valerie, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am thrilled that you're here because we just talked off air for a little bit that I'm a firm believer time management is all about mind management. So I'm really excited about you sharing more about your mind and your energy management. But first, let's start off with a very basic description. When we hear the term high performing team, a lot of us just nod because we hear it so often. But you have been a part of high performing teams. You help leaders get to high performing teams. What exactly is a high performing team?
Absolutely. And it is one of those words that we just hear all the time. But for me, and I think everybody has, I guess there are different definitions, but for me, I think really the foundation of a high performing team has to have a strong level of trust and psychological safety, number one. Without that, you just can't be high performing. Obviously, a shared purpose and goals have to be aligned, right? And everyone
Mhm.
needs to understand how what they're doing contributes, right? They need to see the value of their contributions, having kind of defined roles and accountability, but then also the open communication to say, hey, hold up your hand and actually ask for help when you need it, to say, hey, I'm struggling over here. What do you think? Can we regroup? And that's going back to that psychological safety, uh, and really understanding, to me, whether it's an individual or a team, I think the most underrated thing today, really, or the thing that is going to be the most important in this new world of automation is self-awareness. And if you can have that self-awareness and amongst the team as well, then you're going to understand how to leverage each other's strengths and how to help each other perform better.
Yes, I cannot agree with you more. And I have a feeling we're going to be on agreement in my next question because I always like to ask our guests to tie in the connection between time management and your expertise. So in this case, getting folks to high performing teams, how does time management factor into that?
I mean, it really is critical, right? Because especially well, really in any organization, whether it's a large organization, a small organization, or a solo owner, you've got things that you're trying to achieve, right? Deadlines you need to adhere to, clients you need to work with. You might in the service industry have a guest standing in front of you. So the time is of the essence, right? But I think sometimes we focus so much on time that everything else falls by the wayside, right? And you leave kind of this wake of destruction behind you. So there's more to it than just time.
Yes, exactly. And that is going to lead us into beginning our conversation about what you developed, the Leadership Energy Code. Can you give us just the elevator speech high level? What exactly is that?
Yeah. It's really exactly kind of what you asked in the beginning. It's how can you go from just focusing on time and being so tunnel visioned on that to actually stepping back and figuring out how to be more productive with your time. Right? How to plan your day when you're going to be the most productive, how to manage all the distractions, all of those kind of things. So that's really what the Leadership Energy Code does. And it's a series in programs that I offer. The foundation is just the Leadership Code. And the Leadership Energy Code is the first level that I start with because it's so foundational to everything else.
Mm. Now, you often say that time management is meaningless without energy management. You've already hinted at this. Can you explain what you mean by that and how leaders can start aligning their energy with their priorities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that most people think that they need more time, right? How often do we say, if only there were another hour in the day, I need another day in the week, or next week things are going to be better, right? I was always famous. My line was always, whenever I get past X, whatever project or crisis or whatever I was working on, I was always telling my family and my friends, when I get past this, then I'll have time for you. And I was just 100% head down, focused on work. And I don't think I was the only one doing that, right? I think it's a very common situation. And so what happens when you're just so focused on time and getting things done is that you're not being strategic with how you're doing it or when you're doing it. And then you end up just reacting to whatever's coming at you all day long. I used to do this, and I see this with a lot of clients that I work with, is that they're like an open door. They're handling everything that's coming at them, and then they try to sit down and start their work at 6 o'clock at night when they're already exhausted, depleted. They're not able to actually give it the attention that it needs. Then you're trying to do things when you're tired. You're not even really seeing the possibilities, and everything takes you twice as long when you're exhausted. So it's really about understanding what are your natural cycles and when can I schedule things to be the most productive. That was kind of a long explanation, huh?
No, that's great because it's so important. Creating basically this foundation for productivity. And I completely agree with you. While time is important, calendars are important, task apps are important, they're not the most important things. It's managing everything else that's happening inside of us. So when you talk about the rhythms, are you talking about circadian rhythms? Are you talking about paying attention to your brain energy? What do you mean by that?
Both really. So, I think you have all these books out there saying, you have the 5 a.m. club or the 4 a.m. club, and, this is the secret to success. And I think that absolutely is the secret for a lot of people, but not for everyone. And we all have our own natural rhythms, and we have our own times when we naturally are more productive. Now, I will say for the majority of us, like between 60 to 80% of us, we tend to peak in the morning, our energy. We dip in the afternoon, and then we get kind of a second wind, early evening, late afternoon, early evening. And so if you can actually kind of track that for yourself, it doesn't have to be a big long drawn out difficult thing, but if you can just put like a plus minus system to notice, just notice when your energy level feels great, when you feel like you're on fire, when things are happening easily, and track that, then you can start to plan your day and your time management according to when you're going to be the most productive.
Mm-hmm. I discovered the same thing. I started to realize that I have a lot more brain power in the morning compared to the afternoon. But not everybody is like that. So some of
Yeah.
my clients, they have their brain power right after lunch, whereas post lunch, I am in a mental coma for a little while. So I agree. It's so important that we start to be self-aware, which is what you mentioned earlier. It's a really important skill that you need to be self-aware enough to realize when you have your ups and downs, or even which task you might be working on that will drag your energy down. Now,
Yeah.
it's fairly easy, not easy, but it's easier, I think, to do all that tracking when things are calm. So let's talk about when we are in the middle of a crisis. You've led teams through major crises of pandemics, hurricanes, mergers. What did those high pressure experiences teach you about managing your time and mind under extreme stress?
I'll tell you, they taught me kind of the hard way in full disclosure. You know, I learned very quickly what, kind of what not to do. Um, I'll just give you one example. I'm based in Florida, and years ago I was on property, and of course we would have hurricane season. And the height of hurricane season is August and September. It's also, I was the head of sales. It's also our budget season. It's my busiest time for my day job, so to speak. you know. But a hurricane comes along and you kind of stop everything and you're full operation mode. It's a 24/7 operation. There's all the demands. And I would find myself literally working around the clock to keep up with all the other demands, right? And at some point you have to adjust, right? So it really is a matter of, and everything is different, right? But you have to step back and look at, I call it I've the CIA method, right? So what can I control? What in this can I control? Take care of that. What can I influence, right? So in that example, could I have picked up the phone and talked to my vice president of sales at the time and said, hey, I'm going to be a half a day late on XYZ because I've got a hurricane going on here. What can I influence? Can I negotiate that? And then the A is, what can I either adapt or accept? Or probably a combination of the two
Mhm.
is usually the case. So maybe it's that adaptation. Maybe it's that I can turn something in a half day later. And then I
Mhm.
need to accept that, okay, this is how I'm going to do it.
Nice. Now, earlier, as a part of the intro that I gave, clarity was mentioned. So, when you talk about helping leaders, executives achieve clarity, what is it that we need to have clarity on?
I love this question. 'Cause it really goes back to my comment on self-awareness. And I really do think this is the most important thing. What you need the clarity on is who you are, what's important to you, all of these things. And I think so many of us, it's like we know this, we know that it's in the back of our head. And I think we even kind of think we know who we are or what's important to us, what our identity is. But when we really sit down and try to answer the question, it's incredibly hard. And if you're not clear on that, then everything else, it's easier to get caught up in whatever's happening, right? So even sitting back and looking like at the example I just said before, if I am really crystal clear on who I am as a person, then I can look at this and say, I'm the type of person who delivers excellent results. And if I'm the kind of person who wants to deliver excellent results, what would a person like me do in a situation like this, where I was dealing with this hurricane and budget deadlines? I know that what I'm going to deliver is not going to be great today in the middle of the storm, but maybe tomorrow it'll be better and it'll be excellent. So then it becomes crystal clear to me what I need to do is I need to call and try to influence the due date. It's just as a kind of one example. But I think that if you are really clear on who you are, it makes all the other decisions so
Mhm.
much easier to make. When sometimes you're
Mhm.
stuck and you're not sure what to do, it's because you're not clear on who you are.
And when you're searching for that clarity, are you trying to figure out who you are from both a professional perspective and a personal perspective? Do you separate those out or are they combined? What does that look like in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I think the core of it is typically combined, but it can
Mhm.
be very separate, right? Like it can be very much related to your family. But so let's say if one of my core identities is that I want to provide for my family,
Mhm.
that actually is also going to very much influence how I make my decisions at work. So
Mhm.
they are intertwined. But you can have a separate one for work too. Like this is how I want to show up at work, and this is how I want to show up for my family. But they're
Mhm.
typically going to be connected.
Okay. Now, what about We've been talking about some very high level concepts, clarity and energy. Can you give a few tactical examples of a few simple daily practices that we can use to shift from being in a reactive mode to a more intentional focus mode, whether we're in leadership or not?
Yeah, I think the foundation of really everything is building good habits to support you, right? And the easiest way to do that is to start with your morning. So I think the morning is it's golden, right? Like it just it sets your mind, your energy, everything so that you're better able to handle whatever comes at you. So, for example, when I wake up, well, I do a few things, but before I even get out of bed, I'm reminding myself of three great things that happened yesterday and what's the most important thing I want to do today. And then and this is hard for a lot of people, maybe even impossible in the service industry, and I get that. But where possible, if you can not turn on any devices, not look at the TV, not look at your phone for at least an hour. Just do that while you're getting ready. You need to get ready anyway, have your breakfast, exercise, whatever your routine is. And if you can just avoid all of those distractions, your mind is such a beautiful thing. It will actually be processing things and solving problems for you, and you don't even realize it. But that's to me is probably the most critical thing that you can do to set yourself up for success. Then during the day, really, we can only give our full attention to something for a maximum of like 90 minutes. And ideally, even more like 50, 52, I think is the precise number. Um, so I try to plan my day with that in mind, right? So set a timer, make it visible, turn off all your direct distractions. If you're working on a project, set a timer for 55 minutes and then take a break. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 2 minutes. But look away from the computer. The break is not scrolling on social media. you know, the break is step away from the device, and reset. I think those simple things really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and they are so simple because you don't have to go out and buy anything. It's basically a decision that you make, a commitment that you make to yourself in creating this clarity through taking care of basically your mental capacity for the day. So, if have you ever had a client say, "There's no way I can go for an hour in the morning without checking my phone"? And if a client has shared that with you, how do you help them pass that?
Yes, they have. And look, that was me. I mean, honestly, for 20 years of my life, I would look at the phone before I even got out of bed. I was in a global company. I might have 87 emails overnight. And so I get that. And it might not be possible for everyone. And I work with a lot of people in the hotel industry. So imagine if I'm dealing with the general manager of a hotel. They can't not look at their phone the second they wake up, but they can look at it really quick, make sure there's no emergency. And if there's not, put it down. Like maybe there's a compromise. We're not saying
Mhm.
be irresponsible or ignore your reality because not everybody has the same circumstances, but there are ways to work with it.
Right. I would be curious and ask, how do everybody else in their sphere at work know what time they wake up? So, in other words, how would they know you didn't check email first thing in the morning? Do they know you wake up at 5? Why couldn't you wake up at 5:45? 5:45 that day and say, "Oh yes, I checked my email as soon as I woke up," even though you may have been up for 45 minutes. So I'd be really curious, you know, how many of our colleagues would actually know exactly what time we wake up, and so they would know exactly what time we should start checking email. So I like to give a little pushback when I know that they are brushing aside something that is just so beneficial and not difficult to do. Maybe at
Yeah.
first because of the discomfort,
Yeah.
But in the end, I mean, it's just so beneficial to not have electronics in your face and already getting your brain in reactionary mode before you even start the day. So I absolutely love that tip. Um, what about any other example of a client who has said, well, I'm having a hard time tracking my energy. I don't know when my energy is high or my energy is low. So if you have a client who's struggling with that kind of tracking, what kind of tips do you give them to help them with that tracking?
Yeah, usually when I hear people say that, it's I'll just ask a few more questions to try to understand what's really going on and what they're feeling. And what I've found, I think in almost every case,
Hmm.
it's that they're so depleted that their energy is always low.
Oh.
And so then it's more about, okay, how can we start to shift this and worry about when are you going to sleep, and all of it's a much bigger challenge.
Hmm.
But if they're having
Hmm.
a hard time, you know there are some people, though, you're right, that have a hard time even understanding how they're feeling, and that's because they've ignored it for their whole life. They haven't really been in tune with what is that feeling,
Hmm.
to even know, do I feel stressed, right? These are the type of people that I find are at work, and they're almost, clenching their jaw from the beginning. It's like
Hmm.
they're on a roller coaster at work, and they're just getting through everything. And because they're kind of always like this, they don't even notice, really. They're ignoring it. And so we try to kind of work through ways that they can just take that pause. And those are the individuals that really would benefit from putting a habit in place where they can, right? Obviously, you have some meetings and things, but when you're at your desk and you have the ability to to set those timers and take a pause and really actually think, oh, how do I feel? Just 2 minutes. Anybody can take two minutes to just
Right.
breathe and really feel, how does that feel like in my chest? Like, where do I feel?
Yeah, I have spoken with many doctors who would totally agree with you on the 2 minutes. And they might even move it from every 55 minutes to every 30. I've had eye doctors tell me that there is such an abundance of dry eye out there because we just stare at our monitors all day. We actually need to get up and
Yeah.
look away from monitors, do some blinking. I've had cardiologists tell me if people would just walk for a couple of minutes, once or twice an hour, we wouldn't have as many circulatory issues. So it goes beyond just being more
Yeah.
productive during the day, although our health ties into how productive we can be. So when you're working with clients, are you focused on clarity first or looking at the energy first, or is all of this happening at the same time?
I really try to start with that clarity and understanding,
Hmm.
who am I? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? I really try to
Hmm.
start there first,
Hmm.
and then move on from there. I think the
Okay.
self-awareness is the key to everything. It
Right.
it really is. It's how you do
That's
with yourself, your loved ones, your coworkers, your boss. It just
mhm,
impacts everything.
yeah. Now, you have shared with us some of your personal tips for time management. So you talk about your morning routine and not checking your device, starting off with 3 thoughts of gratitude before you select, okay, what is my goal for today, my most important goal, and then you also talk about the 2 minute breaks. Calendar wise, this is now being more tactical than strategic. Do you have a way that you schedule your day that helps you be more efficient?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. Oh, so glad you said that. This is critical because once you have an idea of your energy fluctuations and when you feel the most energy, that's when you need to schedule your hardest tasks. For most of us, it is the morning. For most of us, it's those first few hours in the morning. Even so, if you're getting at work at 9 o'clock, 9 to 11 would be kind of your golden hour, so to speak. So if you're working on a project, that's when you're going to have the most clarity, the most creativity. Your problem solving abilities are going to be better. Also, you're going to be solving problems while you take your 5 minute walk too, that we were just talking about. Um, but absolutely. And then, we can't ignore the main thing, the emails constantly coming in, of course. So when do we do that? Do that at those time periods that are a little bit lower energy because you don't need as much energy just to kind of clean out the inbox. If there's something major in there you need to do, then you're going to decide when you're going to take care of that. But for the most part, clean out that inbox during those dips in your energy cycle.
Nice. I love that. You have shared a lot of great information with us today. I have a feeling that some people listening might say, "Oh, this might be a little woo-woo," but I just feel it's so important to consider the woo-woo because I am a fan of woo-woo, and I believe that is the foundation for how we can be more productive and how we can live our best life is absolutely establishing that clarity about who we are and managing our energy levels. So I really appreciate you being here today and sharing this with us. So when folks want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, two ways. It's definitely very easy to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there, Valerie Gavin, or I have my website, Orion's Compass, which is where you'll see all about the workshops and the programs and the coaching and all the things that I do. And then those are probably the best ways.
Okay, great. And we will be linking to those in the description below so everybody can just click directly on it. But just in case somebody is driving or they are commuting on a train for your website, Valerie Gavin, GAVIN.com. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Valerie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Helene. It was really a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you.